The Full Circle Podcast. Compelling interviews and incredible tales from Colorado's western slope, from the mountains to the desert. Christi, Reece, and her team hear from the movers, shakers, and characters of the Grand Valley and surrounding mountain towns that make the western slope the place we all love. You'll learn, you'll laugh, you'll love with The Full Circle.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Full Circle Podcast. This is the Inner Circle, and I'm your host, Ian Skrine, where we sit down with experts who know this industry best and bring your clarity and expertise to your questions. I'm joined by a real estate expert himself, Mike Tofel. Mike, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Ian. I'm glad to be here.
All right, so this is our second segment now for this podcast, and really the idea is to answer our listeners' questions that come up with real estate, the market, the process of buying and selling, and then just kind of giving some insight on kind of what your knowledge and expertise lies. So I've kind of got a breakout of questions here, so I figured we'd start with buying, just because everybody's got to start somewhere. So if someone is up against a cash offer, what are the ways that they can compete if they can't offer a cash offer?
Well, yeah, not having a cash offer isn't the end of the story. I mean, you can definitely win a multiple offer situation or a competitive situation just by having, the agent is going to need to, they're going to need to ask questions for the other agent and try to get as much information as they can to see how they can compete with a potential cash offer. So, for example, having a strong local lender. We have quite a few strong local lenders in town, and an experienced agent will know that a local lender's letter is basically as good as cash. Mm-hmm. Knowing that, you are going to have an appraisal. That's going to be one of the issues that you're going to have to work through. But a strong offer, depending on what the situation is for the seller. It might be timing. You want to make sure that, do they need a quick close? Are they okay with letting it, hang on the market for a little while? Do they want to, just what the situation is with the seller? The more you can find out, the better. And a good agent is going to be able to weed through those details and make your offer with a loan as good as cash, if not better.
Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned, it really comes down to kind of your seller's situation. A loan, they may need that 30 to 45 days to find a replacement property or have time to move and relocate. And so while the cash offer may be as enticing because it can be a quick close, that quick close may not be what they're looking for, necessarily be as beneficial as giving them that 45 days, right?
Exactly. Yeah. If somebody needs some extra time to find another house, or they want to rent back, or there's multiple options that might make it so that the cash offer isn't ideal. People don't always want to close in 20 days. Sometimes they need to pack up their stuff and they need a little bit of time and to find another house or many other options. So, knowing those things, you can find that out by contacting the agent and kind of seeing what is important to the seller. Mm-hmm. And once you find out what's important to the seller, then you can construct your offer and put your buyer in the best situation.
Right. And you mentioned some of the ways to kind of help make your loan, the offer with a loan, stand out. We've had kind of conversations here in the office, waiving, whether that is an inspection or, talk about some of the various ways that someone can help maybe make their offer better outside of just having a strong loan offer and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, number one, you can cover any appraisal gap, because that's the number one thing that, a seller with a cash offer is going to say, oh, well, I'm not worried about an appraisal. If you can have your buyer cover any gap and you can put that into your offer, then, that's one less thing that they have to worry about.
Meaning if the home, appraises for $450, but they're listed at $460, there would be a $10,000 appraisal gap that the buyer would cover.
Right. The buyer would bring that cash to closing.
Right.
So an aggressive offer, number one, would help. And then having that appraisal gap, covering that 10, and they agree to pay for that if that were to be an issue. Also, inspection. You mentioned inspection items. So, you can just put in the offer that you will only object to anything with health and safety issues. So if there's like the fire or the smoke alarms or stuff like that, or if there's something that might create some fire damage or asbestos, those kind of things, then we can just basically narrow it down and guarantee that we're not going to nitpick on every little item that might come up. If it's
loose toilet or
loose toilet, that always comes up. Every single inspection I get has a loose toilet. So if you're going to list your house, make sure you
your toilet's secure.
Because that's going to come up every time.
So now when we look at new construction versus an existing home, we've got a lot of new development going on in the valley. What do you feel like buyers consistently underestimate when looking or comparing a new construction to an existing home?
Yep. Well, this comes up quite a bit. And so you get this nice house that you don't have to do anything to. There's no updates. It's all in perfect condition. However, you do often need a fence, and you also need to landscape. And the landscaping costs can be pretty expensive.
Right.
And what we're finding now, a lot of the new builds, a lot of the builders are including landscaping and a fence because it's just too difficult our inventory is large enough to where if you're buying a new house, there's often a house that's already on the market that is equivalent and similar, already has a fence, already has mature trees, already has the grass put in and the landscaping rock, and it's tough to compete unless you have all those things. When we were very competitive during the COVID years, all the new houses, nobody put in landscaping, nobody put in a fence. But now that the market's been a little bit tighter, you're seeing a fence and landscaping already put in. So, it's a cost that people don't necessarily think about, but just something that you want to make sure is in place before you put an offer on a new house.
And fencing and landscaping costs, throw out a rough number as to what somebody could possibly expect. We see a lot of xeriscaping, so that is, I believe, a cheaper route for landscaping versus grass and bushes and stuff like that. But what's a rough estimate if someone's looking to do landscaping and fence? Yeah,
I would say even just a typical yard, less than a quarter acre, 0.5 to a quarter acre. And if you're just doing rock and a couple of small shrubs, 15 to 20,
right?
Front and back,
right.
If you're doing front and back, that goes into 30. If you want anything more elaborate, you could be 30 plus.
Yeah.
And that's not uncommon. A fence, $30 a square, $30 a foot, and probably up from there.
So while the new construction home comes ready and, just hot off the press, if you want to say, there's a lot of outside things, and also appliances too. Like a new home may not always include, I think a dishwasher and microwave are standard, but fridge, washer, dryer.
Same thing. Back in, a few years back, you would see a new house that wouldn't have a fridge. Nowadays, they all have a fridge. Washer and dryer. You're going to have to put in your own washer and dryer.
Right.
Blinds. A lot of times people don't think about blinds.
Yeah.
Think about how many windows you have. Blinds aren't cheap. If you have to put blinds on all the windows, you're 10,000 plus, and depending on how big your house is, 20,000, 30,000. And if you want to have them electrical, or if you want to have anything fancy. So,
so an existing home, blinds may already be there, so they don't, you don't have to worry about that. The sellers may be looking to leave their washer and dryer. Maybe they're moving somewhere that they have one, or they've got two, or whatever the case may be. So an existing home, while it may have been, lived in for some time, it may already still have some of the things that you would have to put up for a new construction.
Yeah. No, it's you just got to weigh the cost benefit analysis. What type of home, what price point are you at? What are the options? And then compare. And, that's something that an experienced realtor will be able to kind of show you the different costs and benefits of each.
Right. Okay. So we get this quite a bit. Down payment. People kind of start to worry when they think about, needing to buy real estate. Oh, I need to put so much down. How much should someone, we know that there's a lot of programs to help with the down payment, and, 20% is not necessarily what you need in order to be able to put down money for a house. But outside of that down payment, how much should someone have saved beyond that down payment before they start looking at if buying a house is something that they can afford? We talked about landscaping and appliances and window treatments and stuff. Those are things beyond the down payment that someone may need when they move into a house.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't want to spend every last penny on your down payment and have nothing left, because what happens with a house is it needs maintenance. Right. Stuff needs to be painted. Stuff needs to be replaced. I just closed on a house. We had an inspection. Everything looked great. Boiler came in, with a good bill of health. And I just got a call from her yesterday. And she said, the boiler went out and, we have to have that replaced. I mean, that's $5,000-$6,000. I'm sure, some people have $5,000-$6,000 extra just laying around. Some people don't. Mm-hmm. I would like to have all buyers have a cushion, right. Just in case. And you're going to have, especially if you have an older home or something that's not brand new, I mean, you're going to have maintenance issues. Landscaping is an ongoing thing. It's not free. You have to keep maintaining your house, or else you pay for it either on the front end or the back end. If you try to sell it, if you don't maintain your house, you're going to lose money on the back end.
Right. We've hear a lot about with new homeowners, this kind of idea of a homeowners maintenance fund, putting aside, 5% of your monthly income or whatever to deal with home maintenance and repairs and stuff. Is there any kind of advice or tip that you give your buyers as to kind of, depending on the age of the house, obviously, but, hey, you guys should anticipate to put aside $5,000 a year or whatever the case may be for home maintenance, just to have a home maintenance fund to prepare for?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea for a first-time home buyer. I would say most of the clients that I work with are, have bought and sold quite a few houses, and they know the deal. I mean, they know that they have to have some extra houses, and you can tell, I mean, and that's part of the reason why, you can't just, the lender won't just lend you, however much money you think you want.
Right.
They have equations and how much can you afford, and that is going to come into that equation is, all right, well, you're going to have to buy food and clothing and maintain your house. And if you spend your every penny on, or spend too much on a house,
paycheck comes in and goes right back out.
Oh God. Then next thing you know, you're calling me back and saying,
right.
hey, I need to sell. I need to sell this thing.
So great segue. Let's go into selling. I think it's pretty popular these days, and pretty much anybody's in a situation, unless you're a first-time home buyer, but needing to sell your current home and buying the next one. How does one sell their current home and buy the next one without owning two houses, or selling one entirely and then starting to buy another one, and now you're not homeless, but you're without a home?
This is a worry that comes up literally every day.
Right. I
mean, I have this question, or trying to work through solutions for buyers and sellers on both. So there are some options. I mean, you can, if I was selling a house and I needed to buy, you would want to first, if at all possible, sell your house so you have those finances, so you could put yourself in a good position when you're on the buy side. Trying to do, you can do a contingency, so you can, say, hey, I'm gonna sell my house, but I mean, I have to sell my house before I buy this next house.
Right.
And you put an offer in a house, and you're going to have to offer more. A buyer or a seller isn't going to want to accept your contingency, especially if it's not on the market. If your house is on the market, it's under contract, and you're past inspection, I mean, that's the line that I usually draw. Like, okay, if I get an offer that has that, it's contingent, and they're past inspection, that means I've got about 2 weeks, and the chances are pretty good.
Right.
We're getting to closing after, because inspection is the number one thing that usually helps, or usually falls apart, a deal. So,
and contingencies can get kind of stressful, so to say, because if you're a buyer and you've got a house to sell, and so you put in a contingent offer on that property, but they also have, they're trying to move, so they do a contingent offer. I mean, we've had that a couple times here in the office. Like, there's a string of like 4 or 6 houses that are all in contingency, and when one domino falls, they may not all fall, but it's more likely that they all fall.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, this just happened to me last week. We closed on a house that was 3 in line. It went smooth. I don't know how it happened.
Right.
But I mean, typically something falls apart in that scenario when you have multiple houses contingent to all need to close on the same date. This one, I don't know. I would say we got lucky. I would say if you have a house that is contingent and then another house that's contingent to buy another house, you are asking for trouble. Usually somewhere along the way, there's some hiccups. I mean, usually can work it out. But I would say that's not ideal.
And so for someone who, let's say they don't want to do a contingent offer, but they don't want to sell, or let's say they do sell. They sell their current home, short-term rental, Airbnb for, a month and a half, 2 months. I mean, those are options that we've heard here. What are some of your other?
Yeah. I mean, that is probably the second best option is to, like I said, sell your house first, move into a rental. And a lot of times people don't want to, move twice.
Right.
So, move into a rental. I mean, you could also, rent back your house. So you can sell, put it on the market, and then one of the contingencies of selling your house is that you have to find a replacement property. So you pay the buyer rent essentially until you find a replacement property, and usually you can do that for 60 days.
Yeah.
So it puts a little pressure on you. You have 60 days to find a house usually. But if you have a good realtor and you have realistic expectations, that shouldn't be much of a problem.
In a plan.
In a plan, yeah. If you have, if you're looking for a special property that comes up once a year, I mean, you're going to put yourself in a tough situation.
Right.
So you have to work through these details with your agent and try to figure out what the best solution is.
So I think this question comes up quite a bit as well. When someone has moved out of their home, they've gone, to their next property, and so their current home is now vacant. They took the furniture with them. A lot of times the question of staging comes up. How much does staging really move the needle, or does it tend to just kind of be an upsell sometimes?
So it depends, but in that situation in the scenario you're talking about where there's absolutely no furniture in the house, I think staging is a very important aspect. I mean, walking into a completely vacant house that does not feel comfortable can definitely turn off buyers. And it's funny because I was in a situation actually just last night. I showed a house. You could tell it was a single guy. It was a bachelor pad, and it was sparsely furnished, and it had lots of pipe stuff and skulls and motorcycle helmets, and it was fine. If it was a guy's house, it looks terrific. But the people that were looking at it were a family, and there was the mom and the daughter, And it was funny because they were outside and they said, oh, if you're going to rank this home, how would you rank it? And the dad said 9 and the daughter said 3.
Right.
And I was like, well, why do you think 3? Like what's not appealing to you with this house? And she said, it just doesn't feel, it doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel homey. It doesn't feel inviting.
Right. They can't picture their toys in that room or their bed there
exactly.
or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And that's how I explained it. I was like, well, look, with your stuff in here, it's going to feel totally different. Mm-hmm. But if there was some staging in there and it did feel more homey, I mean, I think that's what helps sell the house. I mean, you want the buyer to feel like it's their house. You don't want them to feel like it's somebody else's house. Like, so that's why people say, don't put your family pictures on the wall. Don't try to make it as neutral as possible and as appealing to the most or to the majority of buyers as possible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, having a bachelor pad is cool, but if you're going to sell your house, I would spend a little bit, get somebody in there, stage it,
put a plant,
put some plants, and make it look. It makes all the difference.
Right.
Yeah.
And too with vacant homes, a picture, it's hard to tell, dimensions of a room. Oh, will my sofa fit there? So having some type of furniture, regardless of the size, it's like, okay, so that fits there. My couch is a little bigger than that, so we'll be okay. Something that helps somebody say, okay, that's roughly what my furniture looks like, so this is what it would look like in this room, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think that's part of the reason why staging works so well is because then you can. Oftentimes when you don't have furniture in there, it's like you said, it's really hard to judge. And so people often say, well, my couch is not going to fit in here. And then you go to the next house and it has a gigantic sectional in a room half the size. Right. And they're like, oh, this will be perfect. And just like last night, that house didn't have a dining room table in the kitchen, mm-hmm. or it didn't have a breakfast nook table, I should say. And they just looked at it perplexed, like, what are we supposed to do with this? And I was like, people, and that's something that you don't really notice unless you show thousands of houses. Mm. I mean, I've shown people thousands of houses I've walked through, and you just see this happen over and over again where people are just like, oh, it's really hard for, I think, a normal human to imagine furniture and how their stuff's going to look in the house. It's really difficult.
Mm-hmm. So in an instance where staging would not be ideal, any instance that it would maybe hurt the sale of a home rather than help one? Yeah.
And I would say mostly a house that already has furniture, if you can declutter as much as possible, it doesn't hurt to get the opinion of the realtor or opinion of a stager, mm-hmm. to see how you can maximize the space. If you have, too much furniture, is it better to remove some of the stuff and maybe put it in storage so it does feel more open? Right. Staging may not mean coming in and clearing out all the furniture that's there and replacing it with new ones. It may be actually just taking some furniture that the person has to make the room feel not so big or not so crowded, or to have a table that fits in that space because the family didn't have one, or whatever the case may be. Or maybe it's putting curtains on a window just to add some extra dimension to the room. Like, it doesn't have to be a full clean out, starting fresh kind of ordeal. Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to. The main thing I'd say is clutter. Like, people just, if it's got overwhelming amount of stuff in it, I would say that's the number one thing, or the number one issue that I see, is that people like to collect stuff and they like trinkets and they like pictures. And I would say if you can tone that stuff down and make it just what is the minimum amount of stuff that you can live with in your house, right, while you're selling your house. And so staging, like you said, could be removing, and I would say that's the number one thing, is to remove most of the stuff. Right. And to depersonalize it. Yeah. All right, let's kind of shift and head towards open houses. Some agents do them, some agents don't.
some sellers are open to it, others are not. As an agent, do you feel that open houses are worth it? And do they mainly serve the agent, or do they mainly serve the buyer or the seller or buyer?
Yeah, so good question. I think that's going to depend on the situation. A lot of, I would say you're talking about a luxury house. A lot of people don't love when people are just walking through their house, especially if it's, if it's a super beautiful house and you're going to get a lot of looky-loos. It just makes the seller feel very uncomfortable. It's a tool that we use. I would say for a mid-range house where the seller is open, like, hey, yeah, we want to sell this house. We want to get the most people looking at it as possible. And they don't have any hangups with, people walking through their house. I think it's a really good tool. I think we've been finding a lot of success with open houses lately, especially if you strategize with kind of opening weekend. A strategy that I like to use is listing the house midweek, advertising. We'll advertise on social media and the newspaper. I mean, everywhere that we can put it out and make sure that as many people know about this. Hey, this brand new house is coming up on the market, and here's your chance to get a first look at it, because you have the most leverage to sell your house in the beginning.
Yeah, so the first week. Yeah.
The first week when there's not many days on market. I mean, if there are, if the house is on the market for 100 days and, your leverage is a lot less than if it's right away. So we try to front load all our marketing and everything that we can do to get people in the house to create that buzz. And ideally, if we can create multiple offer situations. And I think that's where, if you can get, 10, 15, 20 people coming through on the weekend and they love the house and they're worried about somebody else getting it, that's when we can find yourself in a multiple offer situation and get the most that you can for your seller.
Right. And in the instance where you do have a seller on a more expensive listing that is hesitant to opening their home, there's broker showings or broker opens where only, agents can go through and preview the home for their buyers. And there's some other techniques that someone can do outside of just doing a full-blown open house, right?
Absolutely. And I'm in a situation like that right now. And one of the things that we do is we'll do an office exclusive. And that helps a lot of the sellers that there's like, look, I don't even want showings. But, if someone in your office is ready and wants to come look at the house, and I can bring them in there personally, and it's less intrusive and they don't feel as overwhelmed, I think, and I would say violated, but, where it's like, okay, well, you have your buyers and we could try to sell this before we go on the market.
Right.
So that is one option that, we can get the word out and possibly avoid, the intrusion of, having a bunch of random people walking through your house.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to shift and kind of talk about the market. And the market is kind of as a whole, so not so much specifically to us in the Grand Valley, but this one makes more sense for us. But does it make sense to buy a rental property here in Grand Junction, or has that window closed? I think, I definitely, with Colorado Mesa University being in town, there's a college setting there, and so 8 months out of the year you've got college people looking for housing. So what's your take on the rental market here, and if it's worth it for someone to invest?
Yeah, I don't think it's closed, but it's definitely gotten tighter as far as the margins. And if you're trying to, do that for a profit, or if you're like, okay, well, I just want to, like, for example, I've had some situations where parents will buy a house for their kid. The kid will live in the house, go to school for 4 years, and then they sell it. And I mean, I've had a few that have made quite a bit of profit. I still think that's a great idea, because you have, multiple years of potential upside in the market to take advantage of when you sell.
Right.
And you're reducing the cost. Say you were going to have your kid stay in the dormitory or rent something and pay somebody else's mortgage. So, I mean, I think there are, especially near the college, and depending on what level of what level the house is actually in, I mean, you can get a real fixer upper, and if you have the ability to do all the work yourself, then it could be advantageous to do that. If you're the type of person that needs to hire out all the work, I mean, hiring out the work for a fixer upper is going to kill all the profit, because the profit is quite slim right now. So again, it's going to require figuring out what your situation is. The location is going to be huge. Is it just some random location in the Grand Valley, or is it going to be like, hey, by the college or near the hospital areas, or downtown? I mean, there are definitely some opportunities, especially if you get in that kind of sweet spot downtown where, I mean, that is never going to go out of style. I mean, a house down there's still some great opportunities for fixers. And
downtown's now offering
the
homeowners
ADUs,
the ADU options.
Yeah,
that's
ADUs. If you can put an ADU up on one of those lots, and they're encouraging that, I think there's some upside there as well. So definitely some opportunity in just knowing the market, knowing the locations, and where you can best take advantage of that.
Right. So when someone's relocating from out of state, when you're talking with them, what surprises them the most about our market? I feel like, we've had a couple of other videos that we've done where we talk about some of the changes that people experience. We get a lot of front range movers, people coming out from Denver, and obviously over there it's a lot more competitive. Your inventory is quadrupled, if not more, than what we have here. And so what is some of the main surprises that people find when they are starting to look for houses out here?
Well, so typically when I have a buyer from the Front Range, and I'd like to give them a tour, and we start at the office, and what we'll do is we'll go, and I point out the river is right out here. We have the butterfly ponds. You can rent a boat. You can rent a paddleboard, and put it in the river. I mean, we have a put in right here in town, and then you have a little water feature, a little river for the kids with a beach. I mean, a beach in Grand Junction. Like, who would have thought of that? Right. So I think that's surprising. It's surprising for me, and I've been here for 11 years. So then you have right there, you have the dog park, you have the amphitheater, you have Dos Rios, and they're developing the river over there, and there's going to be, a wave for kayakers, and glamping, and restaurants, and so I think just the development that's happened in town. I mean, you have the symphony orchestra, you have a lot of cultural events, you have a lot of concerts. I mean, we're going to amazing concerts that we would normally drive to Denver for, and you can do that here in Grand Junction. And then when you combine that with, I take them out into the Redlands, and in 10 minutes, you are from downtown, and you are on a trail that is in the middle of, you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere in the desert, with red rock cliffs, wildlife, quiet, and just the proximity of all the cool things we have in town to all the natural things that we have. I mean, the Grand Mesa is, 45 minutes from here, and you're up at 10,000 feet. And in the wintertime, you're skiing, you're cross-country skiing, you're snowmobiling, just the variety of opportunities for recreation. There's nothing like it. I mean, you can look all over the country, and I know a lot of people do, and they come to Grand Junction, and they've found nirvana. It's got everything.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the proximity to things, I think, is what is most surprising for people. I grew up in Denver in the Front Range, and I lived closer to the Rocky Mountains than most people, I would say, do. But even then, I lived maybe 20 minutes from, Golden, Colorado, which is, right up against the Rocky Mountains there. But hardly ever did I, partially on me, take the time to go out there and go hiking and see what was available. But out here, it's like, like you said, you drive through one neighborhood, you go into the next, and then there's a trail that starts there that takes you down one way, and then you leave downtown and you head south, you're at the riverfront, and then you can go from Palisade to Fruta, and then you go out in the Redlands and you're up against the monument. Now you can go into the monument and up, and it's just like the accessibility to everything that we offer, and it's so spread out. It's not just, the mountains on one side of town and the desert on the other, and then the river on one side. I mean, it really carries itself through the valley pretty evenly. Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I've had people that live here for years, and there's some of the stuff, like the other day, somebody was asking me about the trail up, or there's National Forest up, just up of Glade Park. I mean, where you're at almost 10,000 feet. And they were like, oh, we were going to go camping on the mesa. And I was like, well, if you need to be closer to town for the weekend and you wanted to go up there, I mean, you can camp up there and it's closer. It's cool. There's aspen trees and it's shockingly close to town.
Right.
It's
even Glade Park. I mean, I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people don't know about Glade Park. And then when you know about it, you're like, oh, who would want to live all the way up there? But then when you drive up there, you're 30 minutes from town. So it's really no different if you were, living in Fruta and wanted to go have dinner in Palisade. I mean, that's not even 30 minutes, but it's just, I think because it's up on top of the monument, a lot of people feel like it's so much more out of the way than, for someone who lives across town, and it's really not.
No, and there's multiple ways to get up there. Granted, you have there's a drive, but it's a beautiful drive. Right. I have a property up there right now. It's literally 20 minutes from where you would you're in the middle of nowhere. You have an unobstructed view. You're on a cliff. There's complete privacy, and you're 20 minutes from town.
Right.
I mean, if you went to any other city and said, hey, I live 20 minutes from town, where could I go? Right. That's quiet and peaceful and and cooler, actually, because up at 7,000 feet, it's quite a bit cooler. Because a lot of times people will have a little apprehension about moving to Grand Junction because they think it's hot.
Right.
It's hot. Right now it's hot outside. It's in the 90s. But, that's summer. But we have 20 minutes up the road. You could be in 70 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to go 45 minutes up to the Grand Mesa, 50s. I mean, I just camped up there this weekend and I don't think it got above 70.
Right.
I mean, I think it was in the 60s, and at night it was nice and cool in the 40s.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So this is kind of one that is for kind of what your feeling is, but what's a realistic appreciation outlook for the Western Slope over the next few years? We've seen a lot of appreciation. I think I was reading something the other day that 2019, the average house in the Grand Junction area was like 200 something thousand. And now last year's average home price was in the mid to low fours. So just from that growth in the last 5 years, 6 years, what do you think for the next 5 years that appreciation looks like?
Yeah. So we had quite a few years where it was pretty stagnant, where I would say from the 2008, 2009, when we had kind of a drop in real estate prices, it stayed pretty consistent until about, you had 2019, 2020, and then COVID hit, and then we just went gangbusters. I mean, everything went up 40 to 50%. And so I think you made up for a lot of that time where the values were pretty steady. They didn't really go up.
Right.
And we had that big jump, and it's been slowly increasing. So we're a little bit more insulated, I feel like, than say the Front Range, because we have, with a lot of people being able to work from home and the recreational opportunities that we just have a steady inflow of, and I mean, a lot of people I sell houses to are semi-retirees or retirees that are active and want to, play and have the opportunity for very good healthcare and, all of our doctors and hospitals that we have here, and not have a huge amount of traffic. So I just foresee appreciation as a slow and steady increase. And I think that's what we've been having for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. I think when you hear people say they're apprehensive to change, I think a lot of that comes from the sudden change that occurs. Like it's crazy for just years and years and years, and then it just is relentless, versus change that is, like you said, steady, and it's not overbearing to the city. They're able to keep up with the demand of people moving, and there's still a need for it, but it's just steady enough that it doesn't feel like everybody's moving here all at once, but it also doesn't feel like nobody's moving here.
Yeah, no, I say steady growth the whole time, and I feel like, I feel like that's the best scenario for the city, because you're not growing too fast. It doesn't feel like it's overcrowded. Mm-hmm. It's and it's good for real estate. It keeps me busy. Right. It's very rare that I'm overwhelmed or I'm underwhelmed. I mean, it's been, I've been doing this for 11 years, and it's basically remained steady outside of COVID, where it was totally crazy. Mm-hmm. But generally all the other years, it's just been steady growth. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of positive things happening in Grand Junction, because they're not overwhelmed, and there's some time to, expand. We are still building quite a few new houses. There are, I heard, Costco is, coming in, and we're getting more of those kind of retail stores that people are looking for in the bigger cities, without the bigger city problems like the major traffic and overcrowding and going to a trail and running into a bunch of people. Going back to trails, you can go to the lunch loops, or you can go to the monument, and you could still go out there, and within 5 minutes, you don't see anybody. Right.
For sure. Okay. So for listeners thinking a few moves ahead, let's kind of talk some strategy. So the first one I've got for you is, when does buying land and building beat buying something that already exists? And I think, like we've kind of touched on this a little bit here and there, but, outside of, it depends on their situation. When we look at numbers or look at inventory, where does that decision really lie?
Well, buying land and then building a house custom, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you more. I think when you get into the situation to where you just can't find anything on the market that is what you want to build exactly what you want. You have some disposable income where you can afford to build what you want, then find some land and build exactly what you want. Because, and I do have clients like that where they just can't find anything. It's just like, let's build. But you also have to consider, how long is that going to cost? How long is that going to take? Do we have that kind of time? A lot of people, they have their house there in Denver or somewhere, and they're comfortable, and they're like, we're going to do this in a couple years. We've planned ahead. We want to find something very specific. We want to find, that perfect piece of property. And, we have quite a bit of that here. So that's a very good plan. If somebody they're coming in and they need to move for a job, or they need to, find something, they have the ability to like, there's some stuff on the market. You're always going to have a better like financial outcome if you find something that's on the market. There'll be a better deal. The other thing is too, if you already own a piece of land, if it's something that you bought, maybe you bought this amazing piece of property for $50,000,
10
years ago, then, your cost is going to go way down. But land prices, we have beautiful lots, 400, 450, 500,000 people are paying for, 2 or 3 acres, amazing view. You put a house on that's 3,000 square feet. You're in the upper millions, 2 million pretty quickly. Yeah. So depending on your timeline and your budget, that's how I would.
And what you want out of it.
Yeah, and what you want out of it. We do have quite a bit of inventory. Our inventory's been going up fairly steadily over the last 6 months. So you might find, we have a lot of options out there.
Mm-hmm. So can you break down or kind of help explain what a 1031 exchange is and when it would actually matter for somebody?
Yeah. So a 1031 exchange, it basically allows investors to to defer the taxes on the property. And, it's not really something for, your typical homeowner. It's mostly just for investors that are, to move up into, like, say, a more expensive property, because you can't necessarily use that getting a lesser, a property that costs less than the one that you're going to sell.
Right. So let's move into some common misconceptions. I think some of these are ones that you probably hear often, but let's debunk some of these misconceptions that the general audience might have. So I won't use company name, but we'll say a third-party company provides an estimate on an online platform, and someone says to you, hey, this is what they told me my house is worth. True or false as to that is the actual cost or value of that person's home?
It might be true, but I can tell you a couple of different circumstances to where it's more likely true and to where it's less likely true. So say you have a house in town, a very common, say 1,500 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, and 20 of them in your neighborhood have sold in the last 3 months. It's probably, the algorithm that they use is probably going to be very accurate, because, frankly, anybody could price a house that, where there's a bunch of different comps, a bunch of comps for that particular style of house. Mm-hmm. It becomes more complicated the more unique the house is. And like, say it's out in the country or out, say, in Glade Park. This is a situation where I come across quite a bit. So there's been no comps for 5 years, and that there is one that sold 5 years ago. And then you kind of got to figure out, where do you come across the value for something that has no comp, Right. And so that's where an experienced agent, somebody that can look at it from so many different angles, how much would it cost to buy a piece of land and build that particular house on it is one way.
Right.
I mean, or just one of the angles, I should say. Is there something that's sold in the last 5 years? Say the market's been steady for 5 years. Then that could be actually more relevant. One of those third parties, there's just too many, there's just not enough information, I think, for them to get an accurate price for something that's just not out of the ordinary. And to be fair, most people's homes are not cookie cutter,
right.
Exact, with multiple comps, of the exact house. So, like I said, sometimes they're accurate and sometimes they're way off. And
it doesn't know if you've done, converted an office into an extra bedroom, or if you've, completely gutted the place and really done some, significant upgrades to it, or, it doesn't know what your view is. Not that, some people are willing to pay a price for a view. And so it's like, to them, it just looks like you're on a mountainside. But when you get to the house, it's like, wow, this is really, I really want to pay for this house. I want to be up here. So they don't really take into consideration all those kind of specific things that may make your home stand out to even the comp down the street.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for example, in pricing, I just was pricing a house the other day, and to actually go into the other comps, I mean, that's something that I don't think a lot of agents will do, and also kind of shows the lengths that I would go to get an accurate value of a house. So I went into some houses that were on the market currently that were somewhat similar, but you don't know how similar, like to your point of, well, does this one have carpet? Is this one 10 years old? Does this one, was this well taken care of? Mm-hmm. I mean, there was one I went into and it looked like nobody had even stepped foot in the house. It was 10 years old and it was in pristine condition.
Right.
And then there was another one that was on the market. I went in to look at that one to preview it for this listing I have coming up, and same age of home, the carpet needed to be redone. Everything looked a little dated. The view wasn't as nice. I mean, some of the things that you just can't pick up from statistics.
Right.
And I mean, that was, in my opinion, it was $100,000 swing in this particular property, and helped me price one of the houses that I was that I'm about to list.
So let's say another one is, I don't need an agent. I'll save money by selling without. So, for example, for sale by owner. Does that hold up? How many, not saying it's not possible, but how many times what's the success rate, or just throw out a success rate of a for sale by owner versus listing?
Say you're a for sale by owner and you've been in the real estate industry for a long time and you've done, 100 deals or, quite a few, and you're able to not be biased on, how, your kids grew up in the home and that you think it's, worth way more than it actually might be.
Right.
If you can, pricing it is probably one of the number one things. So, it's really hard to know, even though granted you have some tools like, those third parties that will give you an algorithm and help you out with that. I think it's easier than it has been, but I still think, if you price it wrong, if you get that wrong and you spend, 30, 60, 90, 100 days on the market, you've missed a big opportunity. So I think to take advantage of an agent's experience to get you to that price right off the bat is going to save you money in the long run. Also, it's countless items that could come up throughout the process. If everything goes smoothly and you have you get a buyer and they're cash and they love the house and they're going to offer it to you for full price, maybe they'll offer extra.
Right.
And they don't even want to do an inspection. There's just, it's unrealistic to make sure that everything goes well the whole time.
Right.
We go to great lengths to try to make sure we're getting ahead of any problem that I can foresee, as a buyer's agent going in and, looking at the house, are there any cracks and are there any issues that might, a normal person might not see that hasn't gone through thousands of houses, over the last 10 years. And, and the soil. You can have, there are places in Grand Junction that have questionable soil, and do you know where all those are as a buyer?
No, I think the data shows that, for a majority of for sale by owners, they either end up taking less than what their home is actually worth if they were to list it, or, like you said, they run into issues that they weren't able to foresee or that they don't know how to overcome because it's not something that they deal with every day. And so it ends up costing them more because now you've got, issues you need to fix, and then it's, it goes from there. And so I think a lot of times people are like, I'll do it myself. And, I'm knowledgeable.
Yeah. And you just don't want to be on the back foot. And I think that's what a lot of times a problem comes up and then you're kind of backpedaling and you're trying to fix it, and say you get it under contract and then you aren't able to deal with one of those situations that comes up, and especially inspection, which is basically the crux of the whole deal. And the next thing you know, you're back on the market, and then you have to explain, okay, well, why did this fall apart? Why didn't you go through? Then you get some, your house becomes stigmatized in the market. And I would say too, there's statistics that say that if you sell your house, you try to sell your own house, that the majority of those end up hiring an agent in the long run anyways.
Right.
So you might as well just do it the first time, make it easy. and you'll save a lot of mental anguish. And
that's where I was going to head to next. Was the next data is that those that end up trying to sell their own home don't get, aren't as successful. And so then they end up hiring a realtor. And then it's just like, we could have had your house sold last year if.
And people don't realize how many phone calls and all the questions that people have and having to deal with just showings and, and then when you have emotional attachment to your house, which most people I would say do have emotional attachment, if somebody tells you something that you don't like and then you get offended and then you ruin the deal, an agent I feel like is there a lot of times for emotional, just kind of removing the emotion away from the sale. I'd say that's probably one of the biggest things. I wouldn't even sell my own house.
Right.
I would hire somebody else. My kids grew up there. I think it's worth millions of dollars.
Right.
But nobody else is gonna, know all the all the emotional things that I have attached with the house, and I would need to separate from that. And I think that's a very important part of trying to sell your house. Some people, if you have no emotion and you're very, the kind of person where it's just a commodity, maybe you can get away with it, especially with all the technology now. But I would say it's probably a lot easier, and you probably make overall, the statistics would show you would make more money hiring an agent.
Yeah. So if there's listeners out there that are looking to buy or sell, or maybe they're for sale by owner and they're not having as much luck as they'd wish, how can somebody get in touch with you in order to buy, sell, or just even understand the market a little bit further?
Yeah, no, I'm always happy to talk to people. If just called me on my cell phone, 970-275-4138. Come to the office, they'll get in touch with me, and always happy to chat about that.
Awesome. Well, that is a wrap on the episode of The Inner Circle. Huge thank you to Mike for sharing your time and knowledge and answering these questions. If you have questions that you want answered for a next episode, you can send them our way by commenting. You can email marketing@christireece.com. We'd be happy to help answer any real estate related questions that you may have. If today's conversation helped bring you a little closer to full circle, do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, give the show a follow, leave a comment, or share it with someone who may need to hear it. From all of us here at the Christi Reece Group, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. This is Christi Reece signing out from the Full Circle Podcast.